Welcome to Andrea Lake 101, the making of a billionaire. We are doing a Fireside Friday with Miss MeiMei Fox. Hey, MeiMei.
Hi, Andrea. So happy to be back.
I'm so happy to have you back. And girl, we are just going to share with the world what just fucking happened right here, okay?
Yeah, we
MeiMei
need
and
to
I,
tell them.
oh my God. MeiMei and I just recorded this whole fucking podcast. And when I tell you it was banger, how good was it, MeiMei?
It was so good. And you guys, there is so much juicy stuff in here for anyone to learn who's an entrepreneur, change maker, just wants a better world.
We are talking about why is it that Sticker Junkie pays a living wage? Why do we run open financial books? Why do we share with our employees the same vision? How do you get people on the same page? And why the fuck was minimum wage in 2001 $5.15 and it is only today $7.25?
It's mind blowing and incomprehensible.
It is mind bending. I'm going to do a big intro for you, Miss MeiMei Fox, and a big plug for you at the end of this podcast. But for right now, suffice it to say, MeiMei is a New York Times #1 bestselling author. She has co-authored a book with the Dalai Lama and several other people, including myself.
Yes.
She also teaches people how to write #1 best-selling books. You can check out her course on writeyourbestsellingbook.com. And you can find out all about her at MeiMei Fox on Instagram, MEIMEIFOX on Instagram.
Potentially will be even smoother this time, everyone. So enjoy. I want to start with like the biggest picture. So this was a statistic that I read yesterday. Heather Cox Richardson, who is a historian who sends out a newsletter that is excellent. I highly recommend it. Go find her. She said yesterday that there are over 1,100 billionaires
Yes.
in the US today. And I see that your podcast is called The Making of a Billionaire. And if I'm one of those people who isn't so excited about having more billionaires and kind of feels like maybe we have enough billionaires, tell me what's different about you, Andrea. What do you want to do with your billion or billions or 500 billion?
Girl, I agree with you. We 1,000,000% do not need more billionaires. But here's the thing. We, the United States, Americans, all of us, we are the adults in the building now, by the fucking way. We're the ones that are running things. We're the ones that are voting. We're the ones that put in power the people who are in power. And whether it has been a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president, Republican Congress, Republican president, doesn't matter. The minimum wage has gone up $2 an hour in the last 20 years. That is fucking obscene.
That's obscene, especially when you consider how much the price of everything else has gone up.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys an easy example. When I was a kid, I was living in Pacific Beach in the cutest 2-bedroom cottage. It was 12 blocks from the beach. It had a little backyard. I had a little half of a garage, and it was $525 a month.
What?
Yeah. Yes.
Near the beach in San Diego, more than one bedroom
Yes.
and a yard at $525 a month.
That's how much it cost.
And what year
right?
was this? 1952? You're not that old, nor am I.
No, yeah, it was 2000, 2001. It was right around
That was
there.
in the 2000s.
Yeah. And when they raised my rent to 575 and then 595 within a single calendar year, girl, I was salty. I was like, what? That is like a 20% increase in rent. And the thing is, that same condo now, today, goes for $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is not surprising to hear, even though it's horrifying. It's not surprising.
No, so rent has increased by 10x in San Diego since I was a kid. So when I was a kid, you could work literally at McDonald's and go get an apartment by yourself without roommates. Now, it might not be a 2-bedroom at the beach, but you had fucking plenty of options on a minimum wage job. And then you still had plenty of money to afford your healthcare if your job didn't provide it, because it just wasn't that expensive to go to college if you wanted to and pay for your credits in cash, because credits were like $70 back then. It's just insane. You could afford to do anything that you wanted to do on any salary. And most people were not making minimum wage. Most people were making $10, $12, $14 an hour and just had plenty of extra income because it was just so much less expensive to live. And right now, today, minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. That is fucking criminal.
That's
You can't afford to live on that.
No.
No.
So what does this have to do with you being a billionaire?
I'm sorry. Wow, I really went off in the weeds there. Right, nothing actually. So it's that we have set it up this way. And so I'm in a space, in the sticker space, which is a multiple $billion space. So somebody is going to own the biggest company in that space, and that biggest company could very easily make over $1 billion in revenue because there's about $42 billion up for grabs in that space. And so if somebody's going to own $1 billion company anyway, might as well be me.
Well, I'll allude to that. Do with it when you have that $1 billion sticker company.
Well, I have a whole ass plan and I have a whole lot of plans. But first of all, what I'm going to do is properly distribute the wealth. When I win, everybody wins. So I'm not going to be hoarding all of the dollars for myself. So if I have $1 billion company, every person in that company is going to be wealthy. Every person in that company is going to have money taken off of the table for them. They're not going to have to think hard about where their bills are coming from. They're not going to have to prioritize whether or not can I buy a house or can I have a baby? Can I buy a new car or can I go on a trip? The people that work for me are going to afford to just baseline live just the way that like boomers and Gen Xers could.
Yeah, when there was a middle class.
Yeah.
So why aren't other companies doing this? Why aren't other companies also redistributing the wealth? Do they need to, do their C-suite executives need to have $500 million homes and yachts?
So the thing is that a C-suite executive could still have a $500 million home or a $500 million yacht, and nobody would begrudge them of that if they were paying baseline 80 grand to every person that worked for them, because spoiler alert, that's about how much it actually costs to live in a city. Baseline, not wealthy in a city, 80 grand.
80 grand.
A year.
No, I agree with you. I don't think anybody would begrudge them
No.
their yachts and their super mansions if we were all earning at least 80 grand a year.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's not the problem isn't the great excess at the top, it's the great deprivation at the bottom.
So what is driving that? Like let's just we're going Econ 101 or I don't know, maybe this is college level econ. But let's dive into why is that the case?
Sure. And then just so for anybody that doesn't know my background, if it's one of your first episodes, because I am just like a sticker company owner chick. So like, what the fuck? I've also been a member of the Global Economic Institute for 20 years, and the World Economic Forum, the Milken Institute. I always have been very, very interested in geopolitics and in economics. And for all of my life, I never owned a television, and I would just straight up read books. And I would read book after book after book after book about economics, about politics, about psychology, about negotiation, about everything, because I just wanted to learn about everything. But my most big area of focus was geopolitics and economics. And because I don't watch television or consume content in the same way as other people, if I want to know about something, I go read the bill that's proposed. So if I want to know what's going on with the tax code, for example, when we changed the tax code in 2017, which is the last time we changed the tax code in the United States, I just read what the new tax code was. You don't have to ever listen to a pundit or to a social media algorithm that's feeding into your mind different ideas that are almost always, regardless of whose mouth it's coming out of, hit with a really extreme bias that does not say what that bill says. You really can just go read the bill.
Trying to understand on a kind of Econ 101 level. Why is this happening? And so what we were talking about was a really crystal clear example, just to lay it out for everyone, which was rent went up approximately 10x in the last 25 years, from $500 a month to $5,000 a month. Meanwhile, the minimum wage did not go up 10x from $5 an hour to $50 an hour.
Right. Which would be a way more
comparable way. It went up by $2. Why? Why is this the situation right now?
It's the situation. It is a complicated answer. So anytime that you're listening to anyone and they give you a bumper sticker answer, which I know they want to, because Lord knows I want to sell more bumper stickers, that's just fucking bullshit, because you can't solve a complicated problem with a 7-word bumper stickers. There's several reasons why this happened, greed, of course, being key among them. However, an unnecessary quantity of greed, because again, it's not the problem that the people at the top have a lot, it's the problem that we're depriving people at the bottom. And so...
Well, that's a pretty good bumper sticker right there,
sure
Andrea Lake.
is.
I'm just going to say, like, I would put that bumper sticker on my car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have as much fucking wealth as you want, have as many yachts as you want, but
right.
give people health care and a minimum wage that they can live off of. Okay, so that's where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Why?
The reason that we're at that place, there's several reasons that we're at that place.
All right.
But because politicians have to have these huge campaigns in order to get into office, it's incredibly expensive to run a political campaign in the United States. And the United States did not cap the amount truly that could be spent on politics, like they did for show, just so don't come at me and be like, no, there's a cap, because there's not a cap, because a political action committee can put millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into a candidate and get them elected. Well, who owns that political action committee? Big ass corporations. Big ass lobbies, big ass special interest groups, the NRA, I'm not picking on the NRA, I'm not picking on any of them, but any huge lobby. And every big corporation has lobbyists that are working for them, that are making sure that they have politicians in their pocket that are voting the way that they want them to. And most big companies do not want to increase their minimum wage. Now, I know you keep asking me, but why don't they want to do that? We talked about that a lot on the last podcast, and I don't fucking know. It's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid to keep your employees in poverty. It's fucking stupid to have people work for you that can't comfortably afford to purchase the products that you sell. Who is going to buy your products? As we erode and destroy the middle class. It's crazy. And so I don't know why they're doing it on a moral level.
Okay.
However, in general, a company wants to run for as little as possible so that they have profit and they can pay their investors dividends, or they can pay their investors out profits, and then they have what's called a retained earnings. So they sort of take their profit pile. Let's say that they make 20% profit, and they're going to keep 13% of that and put it in their pocket, and they're going to take 7% of that and distribute it to their investors, or whatever it is, the split that they have decided to do with the dividends of their profit. And back in the day, there were a whole lot more bootstrapped companies. And so you would take the lion's share as the owner of the company, perhaps. However, you had 100% of the risk and all of that stuff. But your employees also were set for life, right? They were paying into a pension. They were paying into retirement programs. And they were saving their whole entire life through the job. And they were being fairly paid. For a really long time, that's how it worked.
And even when we were younger, that was the case. I mean, I vividly remember that first wave of Microsoft millionaires that came out of like the early days of Microsoft. And that was a lot of people. And that was like everyone from, just anyone who'd been there at the beginning, even if they were whatever level, receptionists at any level of the company, made a fat chunk of change and went out and bought a house.
Yes. And so right now we're in an economic system where billionaires control information. So they control all of the algorithms on social media. They own every single one of the big networks. It doesn't matter if it's Fox News or if it's CNN, billionaires own them. It doesn't matter what platform that you're on for social media, it's owned by a billionaire. And so there's a lot of indoctrinated thought that's being pushed into people's minds that doesn't make any sense when they stop and think about it. So you'll have somebody who's a really good person, right? This is actually how it first came into my awareness. I knew someone who was an iron worker. I actually knew a few people that were iron workers. There's just like a little segment of people that I grew up with that's what they went into. And they had a great union and they made a lot of money. And at that point in time, I think it was like $34, $35 an hour, something that was like a huge amount of money back then to be making per hour. And I talked to this person not that many years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, and was like, his argument was, well, why should someone in a shipping department make $75,000 a year? Because it's when Dan Price did a $75,000 a year minimum wage in his company. It made national news. He increased everyone in his company to $75,000 a year. And my friend, who was a very, very specialized worker, was making just a little bit more than that. And he's like, why should somebody in the shipping department make $75,000 a year when I'm making like $95,000 a year and I have all this extra specialized training or whatever it was? And I said, oh, that is the wrong question. But there's a whole lot of algorithms that make people think in that question. The correct question is, why aren't, instead of you making $35 an hour, why aren't you making $120 an hour? Because you should be. Because we all should have scaled up proportionately with inflation over the last 20 years. And the pay wages haven't. There's several complicated reasons why they haven't, but it's mostly lobbyists suppressing an increase in the minimum wage. And then there's just lies. There's just lies being told, oh, it's going to fuck up the economy and you can't do that. Let's recall that every single first world country in the world has solved this. This is not an unsolvable thing. The wealth distribution just needs to be a little bit different. And nobody's trying to take away Jeff Bezos' yacht. Jeff, I am not coming for your yacht. But what I'm saying is every person at Amazon should make a living wage for the county that they live in, period.
Yeah.
And then some, if you want the best, most hardworking, most good feeling employees. That's what you should be doing.
So what if there's like, is there any argument to like, we can't afford that, then we won't be competitive and we'll go out of business? Is that?
There's lots of arguments that say that. I just disagree with those arguments.
Okay.
I
mean, it doesn't make sense to me because it's like, okay, well, your C-suite take a little like 10% pay cut and that could be a life-changing amount of money to the other 90% of your staff.
That's exactly right. If you have a CEO that's making $34 million a year, I don't remember what CEO I just heard of that was making $34 million a year. And the lowest person on the staff, there was like a job advertisement for someone making $14 or $16 an hour in a place like San Diego, it might have been in Los Angeles County, where it really costs $35 an hour just to baseline live. You're not wealthy making $35 an hour in LA. But you can live, you can get whatever you want.
So if that CEO who was making $34 million took a pay cut,
there would be no lifestyle difference if they were making $24 million versus $34 million, where you would have a lifestyle total change from somebody making $42,000 a year, which is like what $20 an hour is, versus them making $75,000 a year. All of a sudden, that's a different school district that you're living in with your kid. That's a difference of easily being able to afford to have a child, of being able to save up with your partner to buy a house, of being able to save up on your own to buy a condo. That's the difference of choice of life. And so boomers had that, Gen X had that. We had enough money to live on a basic job, any job. But we've come up with this thing in our minds of like, well, that's a shit job, so why the fuck should they get paid that much when I only get paid this? And I'm like, why the fuck are you accepting only getting paid that? Everybody should have done a sliding scale of it just baseline costs this much to live. So the outlier way top people, that actually doesn't prevent the bottom, because in general, you wouldn't even necessarily have to cut the C-suite salary. I mean, I think that $34 million a year is an insane salary, but like fucking whatever, live your life. But only if the bottom people are really being taken care of.
Right. Start with taking care of everyone, and then you can go have your lollipops and unicorns all
That's
you
exactly
want.
right. And all of the money doesn't have to come out of the payroll pile either. You could raise prices a little, you could cut things over here, you could run a slightly different marketing campaign. Instead of doing a $2 million Coachella activation, if you're a Fortune 500, you could do a $1 million Coachella activation. Do you know, like there's all kinds of different redistribution, but it's just like somehow we have been indoctrinated, all of us. Anyone who says, well, we can't pay fast food workers that much, what the fuck would small business do? And I'm like, okay, cool. Every other first world country in the world has solved for this, and it's that everyone needs to, at the same time, correct this. We would have to do it in a mindful way, but we have chosen as a country not to do that. We have chosen as a country to scream and yell and argue with each other about issues that we are never going to agree on, and these issues have to be resolved, and that's why it's a complicated problem. So it's very easy for the people in power, the billionaires in power, to bring up abortion or immigration or private schooling or vaccines or anything that if I think one way and you think the other way, we are just baseline not going to agree. And we're going to get more inflamed and angry if we argue over the reasons that we think some kind of way. Instead of just saying like, hey, let's elect a bunch of economists that actually deeply understand. See, their fucking job is to balance the goddamn budget. And they don't
Yeah.
know how to do it. Otherwise, we would live in a thriving economy, period. They, all of them, don't know how to do it, or we would live in a thriving economy.
So you've pointed to the problem with politicians,
Yes.
basically because of PACs. They're in the pocket of the billionaires.
Yes.
The media is in the pocket of the billionaires,
The media is owned
and
by
so
billionaires. The media is
owned by the billionaires. So
every
what?
source of media.
So this is a very, very strong argument for why Andrea Lake should be a billionaire. People, I am not getting paid to say this. I mean, this is it. We need then good guys to be billionaires. And I'm sorry, I am going to use that language. You don't have to, but like basically the people who care about all the other human beings
Yes, that's right.
on the planet.
Yes, that's right.
And
And
as
so-
you said, not even giving them, not even making them so wealthy, but just, how about just enough to live? How about healthcare, education?
Yes, that's right.
What are you doing at Sticker Junkie? Tell us what you're doing at Sticker Junkie. Like, how do you manifest this? I want to know, like, very brass tacks. What does this look like at Sticker Junkie?
Boots on the ground and Sticker Junkie, what it looks like is I have open books at my company, which means that every person in my company can go look, how much money did we make yesterday? How much money did we make last week, last 30 days, last 365 days? In addition to just like baseline, people understand how much money we're making in the company. Then I do a breakdown for them. I used to do it every month, but now we do it once a quarter where we go over our quarterly numbers and I explain to them, this is how much money went to payroll because we're very overspent on payroll. Like we're holding aside 22% for payroll, but we've been spending more like 32% on payroll because we just don't simply have enough to pay people as much as we would want them to, and we overextended ourselves. So we're just running to catch up with sales so that we get that within an appropriate bucket. Now, most companies, they want their payroll to be in single digits. They want their payroll to be 7%, 7 to 13%. I know. And it's not the C-suite that's taking a haircut on that. But in some companies, that's not even bad, right? Because there's plenty of money in that payroll pile. The problem is the distribution of the payroll pile. So in Sticker Junkie right now, up until we get to about maybe $30-40 million in annual revenue, the top person at the company will never make more than 3.5 times the bottom person of the company. Once we cross over and get to like 100 million in revenue, we will extend that up to 7 times, and it will fucking never, ever on base salary go above 7x ever, because there's a need to. So if everybody at the top is not happy with their, $500,000 a year and instead wants to make $630,000 a year, then instead of having the bottom people at $80,000 a year, we would have the bottom people at $90,000 a year. And I know that these numbers sound crazy to some of our listeners who are calling or who are listening in from like Ohio or Nebraska or someplace where it just costs way less. But you guys, we're in San Diego County, and that's how much it costs to live there. To be comfortable in San Diego County, you're going to want to be making like $85,000 a year to be just baseline comfortable.
Yeah. So you do open books, and then not only do you sort of allow people to access your books, but you're actively educating your employees on what those books mean. Because not everybody knows. Some people I'm sure do, but others don't, right?
That's exactly right. And so when we just had a pace up in our sales, right, we were plateaued for a while at 1.95 million in annual revenue, and now we have very suddenly increased to 2.4 million in annual revenue. By the end of the year, we should comfortably be at 4 million in annual revenue just with the clients we're currently onboarding. At that point, everybody,
sorry, take a break to say woohoo.
Yes. At that point, every single person in our company will be on healthcare, we'll have, paid time off, we'll have all of the things that we would want as a company. We'll start to implement better paid time off, we'll start to implement better wages until everyone gets up to $32 an hour. But MeiMei, to get where we want to go, to get everybody to $32 an hour, we baseline need to be making somewhere between 8 and 10 million in annual rev. And then we explain to them, like, 22% is really high for payroll. We can't for a long time exceed that. And then this is how much goes into marketing. This is how much goes into new equipment. This is how much goes into utilities. This is how much goes into rent, so that they understand. Because otherwise you'll have employees that are like, whoa, we made 22 grand the other day. Like, we're rich. And I'm like, girl, we got some bills. We got some bills to pay.
We got some bills.
Scaling is expensive.
And those sticker machines are not cheap, as we discussed in our last Fireside Friday chat.
They are not. This is not a little Cricut that we have. Those Cricuts are very cool, but this is like these are very expensive pieces of machinery.
Are you transparency about salaries as well? Do you guys have salary
Yeah.
transparency?
Yeah. I mean, we
Amazing.
don't really post and talk about it, but everybody knows that nobody gets paid more than and right now it's
Yeah.
nobody gets paid more than 3.5 times the lowest person.
Wow.
We are way below that
Amazing.
now. I
Amazing.
think we're like a 2x up or something.
What else do you do to, do you talk during your interviews with
Oh,
people
yes.
about what's going on at Sticker Junkie? You do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. And that's the way that we've recruited so much talent. Like when we recruited Emily, she fucking used to work for Cultura. She's an
Oh
industrial
my God.
designer. And I'm like, why did you even apply for this job for $18 an hour? She's like, I just read this thing and I was curious and I just thought I would come for a conversation. And she's been working for me for a year. And I was like,
Wow.
I think I can pay you like 20. And then, and then when I could bring everybody that was on that original team up to 25, that was such a big deal. But that is still so far away from them. Jenny got offered a huge job recently for like way more than we can afford to pay her. And she's just like, nope, I'm good.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
She's
all
in it,
right.
in it.
So now you're going to have your employees are going to be making enough money to live
Yes.
in San Diego.
Yes.
They're going to have health care.
Yes.
They're going to have daycare, but like
Yeah.
they're also
In the future.
they're super loyal in the future, in the
Yeah.
near future, it sounds like, heading towards that.
Yeah.
They're going to be loyal to you,
That's
and they're going to
exactly
give you
right.
their best effort.
It makes so much more economic sense to treat people well that it's literally beyond my comprehension why every company doesn't do it. And as we start to expand and hit these goals, like I've said before, I think I've said
Yeah.
this mostly privately, but the reason I keep doing this podcast week on week on week, despite the fact that we haven't really been promoting it, is
Yeah.
that when we hit this second year in a row of 500% growth, people are going to want to see how we did that. And when people that hear about us in 3 years and we're at 50 million in annual revenue and we started out at 438,000,
Yeah.
they're going to want to be like, how the fuck did you do that? I'm like, good question. Scott Galloway recently said, I love Scott Galloway, Prof. Scott Galloway, I think is his Instagram handle. He was like, you have to be ruthless when you're building a company with those first 20, 30 employees. But if you lay the foundation properly, that's what makes a company go. And now that we have this team,
What do you mean by be ruthless with your
you have
first?
to keep people on your team who are team players. You have to get them in line with your vision. And somebody that's not going to work on your team, you have got to let them go. You cannot, it will destroy the whole vibe of a company if you have somebody that isn't in line with your vision. So we have a team. We have like a professional level team. I have never seen a coordination like this outside of a professional level sports team. That's what we have at Sticker Junkie.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about all the other reasons, like quite simply, if you're not feeling excited about going to work, you're going to be sick more, you're going to
Yeah.
have mental health issues. I mean, we haven't even gotten into all of those factors of kind of productivity, to use a very inhuman term, but
Yeah, it's super crazy because to us it's so clear that when you treat people like adults at work, like who are capable of making their own decisions, and like if their kid is sick, then they have to go pick their kid up and take care of them. The amount of punitive sick leave that I've seen in companies, I'm like, do you not understand that people have a whole ass life? And when our people do come in, we have a policy that like you just can call in sick. You don't have to fake. You don't have to pretend like you're sick. You can just say I'm taking the day off. And if you're having a bad day, like you're actually just allowed to say I just need a day. Except for that, I've had so many of my team members say, actually, if I'm having a bad day, I love going into the office because I love my coworkers.
oh,
I know. And we keep like, food and snacks around for them and like a little drinks fridge and all the little bennies that you get. And the people at Sticker Junkie genuinely like the people that they work with. And they genuinely like the talking heads, which is what we call our C-suite. And it took so much reprogramming to really have people understand and believe that they are not in trouble if they get called into my office or into Brian's office. Like we really want to solicit their brilliant minds. And as a result, these brilliant people, the degree to which my staff was underutilized and this just like totally untapped potential at their previous jobs, I can't even possibly express because we have a bunch of problem solvers and they constantly solve whatever issues are coming up within their own department and constantly think of better ways to do stuff because they're happy to, and everyone wants us to get to the next level. Everyone at Sticker Junkie wants us to hit 4 million so that we get healthcare. Everyone at Sticker Junkie wants us to hit 8 or 10 million so that every single person is on a living wage. And then everyone at Sticker Junkie wants us to hit the next goal after that so that we can split it out and give appropriate salaries to every person there and benefits to every person there.
I mean, of course they do. Again, it's so obvious. It's like
Yep.
a win-win-win where your employees are happier, your company's happier, you as the boss are happier because you've got happier employees. And what are you sacrificing? Maybe a little bit of salary, but then your whole society is going to benefit. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your vision for that,
Yeah,
for the big picture.
Yeah, the big picture at Sticker Junkie basically is even when I came in back into these companies in September of 2023, I came in because I had to. So I thought I'm going to build this, I'm going to flip it for 20, 30 million dollars. I'll break out my employees, whatever 10, 20, 30% of whatever the profit is that I make from that company. Then I will bounce and go retire again. But I saw very clearly that there's not an ethical way for me to exit this company because there's tons of consolidators and then it just gets thrown into a big private equity company. So there's all these big private equity companies that are doing roll-ups and consolidations of different industries, whether that's dentist offices, sticker companies, screen printing companies, in our case, whether that's just different drugstores. It could be anything, different doctors' offices, different real estate offices. They're all getting snapped up by different private equity companies so that virtually everyone eventually will work in one way or another for a big consolidated private equity company because that's who's starting to own everything.
What does that even mean? What does that mean? A private equity company will start to own it. Like, who is that? Who and what is that entity, and what do they do, and what are their motivations?
So a private equity company, just generally when you used to invest in stuff, most people were investing in the stock market or the NASDAQ or the Forex or something, or they were investing in like a long-term asset manager, right? Like Merrill Lynch or something who was going to trade in very safe things on behalf of their clients for a retirement portfolio. And then all of a sudden, instead of just trading, people could invest in companies that owned lots of things, right? So you have a lot of companies that own a lot of real estate ventures and you invest into that fund and then you get a little piece of whatever the rental property is, right? Like if you're a company like ours, like Sticker Junkie, we don't own our space right now. We're renting that space. And so that might be owned by someone who owns, thousands of different offices. So there's all these consolidators that are housed under this private equity company, and it's just another way of asset management that people invest in for their retirement funds or for long-term wealth growth.
Okay, so anybody can invest in these funds. And their motivation is
More or less.
more or less.
Not everybody.
And their motivation is more dollars,
Yes.
more profit.
That's right. That's their entire motivation is to make a profit for their investors. That's what they're supposed to do. Like that's their job is to increase the money. So if you had, $100,000 in your retirement savings and you were putting that with some private equity fund, your expectation would be that that would grow by a certain percentage every year. And generally speaking, they target about 7% a year is the baseline target of what a private equity company is trying to increase by. However, when you're worth billions of dollars, like if you have $100 billion under asset management, then you would need to increase by $7 billion this year and by like $8.5 billion next year and on and on. And there's some of these funds are worth $1 trillion.
What?
That's right. And so this 7% becomes exponentially large until eventually it will be mathematically impossible.
And my guess is if you're doing that and you're investing in that, even if you're a good person,
Yeah.
like one of us,
Yeah.
but you're not paying attention to what they're doing or how they're making that money. There's no personal connection.
Well, and a lot of times it's huge asset management funds that are breaking off part of their fund into a private equity thing. So it's not really like you're going to go or I'm going to go and invest in that one little particular thing.
That's what I mean. So you're just kind of throwing some money at for retirement, like you said, like I want to see my money increase by 7%.
That's exactly right.
So it becomes like less and less personal. It feels
Right.
like.
Right. And so a big asset
Okay.
management fund, like
Okay.
a really big asset management fund called Ares Capital Management,
Okay.
purchased Sticker Giant. And I have a guess,
Okay.
a good guess about how much revenue Sticker Giant does, and it's a lot. It's a lot more than we do. And when I went to the Milken Institute and I met one of the principals of Ares Capital Management, I was like, oh, you bought one of our competitors. But on my tag, it said Anti-Fragile Capital, which is another one of my companies. It didn't say Sticker Junkie. So he's like, oh, who did we buy? And I said, Sticker Giant. The blank look on his face. No idea. Never heard
Wow.
of the place.
Wow.
Know who they were. And I said, oh yeah, they were purchased by such and such, whatever the consolidator is that owns 30 or 40 different really large print shops. I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head. And he said, oh yeah, that's one of our consolidators. And just like rolls his eyes up and he's thinking, he's like, yeah, it's one of our consolidators. Principal of that fund never even heard of this massive company that they own. And so it's not only like that you can't get a hold and have a personal conversation with your actual boss, who's that guy. It's that he doesn't even know that he owns that company
He
and
doesn't
that
even know you
particular
exist in his portfolio, which is wild.
the
And
whole entire company. Yeah.
the reason I wanted to hammer down on this path is because I feel like private equity is one of those words that I've heard thrown around for 20 years, but a lot of people like me don't even understand that. And what does that actually mean for the business
Right.
is the consumer who is buying from Sticker Giant versus the consumer who is buying from Sticker Junkie. Not that we have anything against Sticker Giant per se,
No.
but that they're owned by private equity.
That's right.
Just explain that to us. Just explain what that means to the consumer, whether it's a person or a business, a coffee shop,
Anything.
a university.
What that means is that you're going to have a certain amount of profit in your company. Let's use a really easy math because I don't know what anybody's actual numbers are. Let's say you have 20% profit in your company. The company itself is going to do what is called retained earnings, which means this is how many earnings that we're going to keep in this company and put into our pocket. And then you're going to have dividends. So let's say you're taking 13% profit, putting it in your pocket. You're going to, cozy up your bank account in case you ever hit a speed bump and make a little bit less money. You're going to make sure you're well secure in the company itself. Then you're going to pay a percentage of profit to the parent company, or if you're traded on the stock exchange, to the investors in the stock, or if you have sold a piece of your company to the investors in your company, and those are going to be dividend payouts. Well, in my company, it's a bootstrapped company, so I don't have any of that. So when we make way more money and way more profit, oh man, that goes into the pocket of my employees, and I hold it even 22% for profit, 22% for payroll. None of my employees are $2.2 million in debt right now. They didn't fucking risk everything in their whole life to be building this thing.
Fair enough.
However, the company doesn't exist without me, period. And the company doesn't exist without them, period. And so there's an equal distribution of the wealth and the profit that's coming into the company, into the pockets of my employees, as well as into my pocket. And does everyone get paid the same? No, I am not a socialist. Everyone doesn't get paid the same. But does everyone get paid baseline fair? Why the fuck is there a single American that thinks that it is okay not to pay everyone in the economy fairly? Like, you have to struggle. If you have the hardest job, let's talk about the hardest jobs. If you are scrubbing toilets and scrubbing the dirty ass, filthy fucking grill at a fast food restaurant, which by the way was my first job. I was a janitor at McDonald's. It was awesome. I'm
Wow.
literally scrubbing toilets for minimum wage. So the hardest jobs, the most demanding jobs, the jobs that are going to break your body when you do them for 40 years, lifting boxes in a warehouse. We think, well, fuck you. That's all that you get. So you should just not even make enough to live. You should be happy with what you're getting. What the fuck? Nobody put that in your mind, but a whole bunch of really wealthy people that want to have all of the things while you have none of the things. This is not an issue of the Democrats or the Republicans. There's been plenty of Democratic leadership and plenty of Republican leadership for the last 22 years. And guess what? Minimum wage has gone up by $2 fucking dollars, while everything is 10x more expensive. So it is all of them. This is not a polarized thing. And the longer that we are convinced to argue with each other over vaccines or abortion or immigration or something that is a touch point that we're never going to agree on, if we're on opposite sides of that, we're not going to agree on that. So let's talk about all of the things that we do agree on. You should not have to file for bankruptcy if your kid gets cancer.
Oh my God, I know healthcare. We've barely even touched into that. But that's like ridiculous. It's bankrupting people when they get sick in this country. And by the way, this is not a hypothetical statement.
No.
All the other countries give free healthcare. And then in our
real.
country, we go, oh, well, that's socialized medicine. Like, FYI, I have socialized medicine in this country. It's called Kaiser. Like, you go, you see the doctor who you get the treatment. It's really good. It works.
Also, the only people that say socialized medicine are bad are people who have not been treated in other countries and see how socialized medicine actually
Exactly.
functions by the fucking way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All,
So,
all systems have their issues, but the degree to which socialized medicine is better. And socialized means the government is taking care of that and paying for that. Well, guess what? That means the government isn't taking care of that and paying for that. You are paying for that.
you are from
Your
your
tax dollars should be paying for that. But instead, we're piling billions of dollars in corporate welfare into companies that are not paying their lowest employees a baseline living wage. That is criminal. It's
It's
criminal.
criminal. It is criminal.
It's
I mean,
horrifying.
it's literally killing people. And now our life expectancy has also gone down vis-a-vis other industrialized developed nations. Our life expectancy has gone down.
Yes, in
So it is
America,
literally killing people.
yes, we are a first world country that has some of the highest degrees of wealth and measurable GDP,
Yep.
etc., and that has one of the worst birth rate mortality rates,
Yep.
one of the lowest education rates.
Yep.
It's crazy how badly we score, and it's because of a misallocation of wealth. And to reallocate wealth correctly is a complicated thing. It's not easy if somebody tells you a bumper sticker answer that's not true. There are complicated answers to complicated questions, but it is certainly possible, especially when you open the door for something like Doge. If that had been populated with just straight up economists that didn't have a financial fiduciary interest in getting access to everyone's data or had a bunch of lawsuits against them that they could just go clean up real quick, like if that had been done in a responsible way, there's not actually as much waste in government as a lot of people think in the little individual areas that people focus on. Like federal workers, just in general, are doing a fucking pretty kick-ass job at whatever meat inspection that they're doing, or forest control, like whatever department within the government, public works or water, etc. That's not where the waste is. The waste is corporate welfare, which is not being addressed because of the way that our government is set up. That's huge. We need to
What is
allow
corporate welfare? What is
corporate
corporate
welfare
welfare?
is when a company is not making enough money, like the airlines, for example, will get subsidies from the United States government because they're not profitable, instead of allowing actual capitalism and competition. Because I fucking promise you, competitors would come and take that space up. We do not need to prop up companies that can't make a
No,
profit properly.
no,
We do not need
no.
to. It is not necessary. However, there's huge lobbies that say, no, it is necessary and we do need these dollars for this. And I'm
Ah,
like, okay, cool. You actually don't. And so it's like everyone's hand has been in the cookie jar for so long. And to unwind that where the actual waste exists, it is a complicated problem, and you need incredibly smart people that are actually focused on just balancing an economy and balancing a budget. And that's
wouldn't
not
that be amazing?
criteria.
Wouldn't that be amazing to just have like a bunch of really fucking smart economists just saying, here's what we actually need to do and execute?
Yes, because one of Congress's job, of course, Congress's job is to write new laws, and it also is to balance a budget. And so
Yep.
the fact that we don't put people who are running through Congress through a fucking very strong series of, do you even understand economics baseline at all whatsoever?
Zero.
Yeah, in most cases.
Yeah, and okay, so I want to get back to this. Like, there are ways to make change, and one of the ways to make change is to become a politician, but then you're going to have to go solicit billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars for your PAC from the corporations. The other way is to build $1 billion corporation and be a billionaire because they seem to be having the most impact right now.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
And then there's media influencers. I guess there's like media influencers.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my mentor broke it down this way.
Okay.
Anybody can be a mover of society and a mover of economies. And there's like basically 5 different ways. You can be a politician,
Okay.
you can be a humanitarian that's like a Mother Teresa or something.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You can be incredibly famous because you have so much influence with fame, or you can be incredibly wealthy. And there's another way that I'm forgetting. Or you can do like a public service, like military or whatever, and become a general or something like that. And
Right.
so as the bigger of a company that you have, the more power, the more dollars, and the more influence. And so the way that the average person can affect change is to actually buy from companies that align with your values.
Hello,
It's the easiest
Sticker
way.
Junkie people. Like, if you want,
Bring me the money. Because somebody is going to make this money, and it's either going to be our competitors over at Sticker Mule, who are privately owned and have a 100-foot long vote for Trump sign on the top of their building, and have their little R word pass. And
yeah,
if
go
that
check
aligns,
out their social media, FYI, because you are in for a treat.
if that aligns with your values, then you're probably not watching my podcast. Unless you work
Probably
for
not.
Sticker Mule and you just want to see what I have to say. In
Hi,
which case
Sticker
I
Mule
say
people.
hello. Hey, I hope your day is fantastic. Or my other competitors like Sticker App and Sticker Giant, who are owned by massive multi-billion-dollar private equity funds. Now, do they have fantastic people working for them? Yes, my friend John started Sticker Giant, and he used to run that company with open books. He had the same type of business model that I did, and I know that he had a fantastic environment because I know people that worked there. And now it's owned by a private equity company. Have they maintained the same culture as when John works there? I don't know. But I do know other companies that I've personally seen the inside of and what happens to them when they get purchased by private equity. And all of a sudden, it is all about the bottom line. It is all about increasing the profits
Yeah.
in every single way possible to pay back to the parent company.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when you come with us, like, first of all, we're not transitioning like our customer service to AI, and we're not replacing our people with robots, which a lot of our competitors are doing right now. When you call us, you're on the phone with Wendy or Jenny or Alex or whoever is answering the phone that day. When you write an email to us, we do not have AI respond to it. Somebody actually reads it. Not that we have a bunch of different templates and maybe we shoot you something that's within the template. Yes, but do we customize it? And if you asked a different question, did a human being read it and see the nuance of your question and answer it for you? Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so when we support as a community different companies that align with our values, it changes the way that companies perform. If everybody just boycotted Amazon until they started paying their lowest person 80 grand a year, Amazon would pay their lowest person 80 grand a year. Or whatever the living wages where they are domiciled.
I'm good with 80 grand a year. Let's just go with that. What's
Well,
wrong with that? Seriously,
You're
what
living
is
high.
wrong with that? Jeff Bezos, we're looking at you.
I know there is nothing wrong with that, but if you live in Kentucky, a living wage might be closer to $50,000 a year. So whatever
Okay.
the living wage is, where somebody can like afford to buy a house, afford to take their kids to the zoo or the movies or wherever on the weekend, afford to go to a professional sports game, afford to take a trip, afford to have a baby. People are like, "Oh, there's such a low birth weight rate," and I'm like, "No fucking shit. Who can afford to
No
have
kidding.
kids?
Yeah.
Literally, at all whatsoever."
And there is no middle class anymore for the record. So, yeah.
No, no.
Um,
Who can
I want
afford
you
health
to,
care
who
insurance?
can afford healthcare? Who can afford
Mine
healthcare?
is $660 a month. And MeiMei and I were talking on our previously recorded podcast. Family of four, two kids, two adults. How much is your healthcare, MeiMei?
$2,000 a month, and that's not cover. That doesn't cover everything.
I don't
Like,
have the
I
best
cannot
number.
express that to you. That is the baseline, and that is, again, like I said, quote unquote socialized medicine, because that's Kaiser. We don't pick our doctors. We go to whoever they send us to. It's fabulous. I love it. Shout out to Kaiser. But like, I still pay an extra $40 when I go in for this appointment.
Yeah.
An extra, $100 if we have to do an urgent, like blah blah blah. So that doesn't even cover all the bills. I want you to just end this round
Yes.
by painting a gorgeous, beautiful, inspirational manifestation picture for us. I want to know where you, Andrea Lake, are, where Sticker Junkie is, and how because I know you have spent time thinking about this, the ripple effects of that onto your community.
Yes. When we get to where we're going, which is somewhere around $1 billion in annual revenue, this is a $42 billion annual space. We anticipate that we will be able to get 5% of this space. That is not some cuckoo pants crazy thing.
Why not?
Exactly. I have done $442 million in revenue across the course of my career. Brian built a company that was doing, $100+ million in revenue annually. And so we understand how to scale a company like this. So these aren't fucking like, we can't do this kind of numbers. So when we get up into those upper echelon, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, Every person on my staff is so well compensated and so well taken care of. And whatever the living wage is in San Diego County, which is where we're located, they will be making comfortably above that. Everyone will be getting bonused out of the payroll once we exceed the amount of payroll from that 22%. We're not stripping it back and just only doing 17% for payroll and putting the rest of the money in Andrea's sweet little pocket. Everybody is going to benefit from this. We should have on-site daycare. That's something that we've talked about. We'll have on-site fucking everything. And just because people can use it, it won't be usurious. They'll have to be clocked out if they go to like the on-site hair salon day or the on-site gym. They're not getting paid to do that, but they're certainly welcome to take care of any of the resources that we have. We'll have a cafe where people can get actually really fucking totally delicious food. Just all of the things that you would want for a really ideal environment. We'll have, somewhere from 6 to 12 weeks of vacation time a year. We'll have fully collateralized maternity care, which we already have agreed to do. We already have agreed to subsidize any maternity care to somebody's salary that isn't covered by the state, because currently right now in the United States, you get like 6 or 12 weeks, I think, of partially paid maternity care. But I'm like, who can afford, even when they just had a baby, to only make 40% of their salary? It's going to be one of the best places in the country to work. And that is our goal. It might be the best place in the country to work.
Well, that is a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for explaining all the Econ 101 to all of your fans and listeners.
You got it. I hope you guys loved this episode. And thank you, Miss MeiMei Fox. Once again, if you've always wanted to write a bestseller, she knows how, because she has done it a bunch of times. She's been on the New York Times bestseller list a bunch of times and #1 on that list. She is teaching people how to do it through her course, writeyourbestsellingbook.com. You can find out all about her also at MeiMei Fox on Instagram, MEiMeiFox. Girl, thank you. And we've decided that we're going to do a spill the tea, dirty tea episode.
Oh, I cannot wait for that.
We're going to do an episode where we're drinking a little wine, and she is asking me, MeiMei knows every aspect of my love life. She knows every aspect of every fucking weird ass thing that ever happened. And we're going to get into it with some wine and maybe a little weed on a future episode. So stay tuned for that.
Can't wait. Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks,
everybody.
All right. We'll see you guys next week when you can grab your wine, grab your popcorn, and I will bring all of the tea on a Sticker Wars episode. See you guys next week.